Hey there, welcome to another episode of Mike's Collection. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is some of the new action figures I accumulated over the holidays, near the end of December, the start of January. Now, if you frequently watch my videos, you might be thinking, isn't that what you talked about in the last video? And it was, but the thing is, I got a lot of action figures right around the holidays. Left toy companies are putting out a lot of product, and every time I went out Christmas shopping, I would find a couple of things I had to pick up for myself, and I just got a lot of stuff, and I also wasn't opening everything and showing you guys right away because anything I buy for myself kind of around the holidays, I like to kind of set aside and open it up for Christmas. And so when I set out to do episode 61, I shot my little intro and my outro, which I shoot at the same time, and then I shoot all the middle bits in between. So I shot my intro and said, I'm going to show you all my new stuff that I got over the holidays. And at the end, I said, that was all the new stuff I got over the holidays. But truth be told, as I was going through that video, I realized I was already at like the 45-minute mark, and I still had a ton of stuff to show you. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to just cut it off here, and I'll do a part 2. And honestly, I don't even know if I'll be able to cram all this into a reasonably length episode. Again, I'd like to keep them under an hour, so 45 minutes is probably good. I don't know where I'm going to end up with this because I do have a lot of stuff down here. And in fact, just this week, in the last couple of days, I got 2 new waves of Marvel Legends. So that's 7 figures each of the Fantastic Four wave and the new Spider-Man wave. So I'm eager to show those to you too. However, there's just too much other stuff I have in this video to show you right now, so I'll have to do those probably in separate videos, which I'll post in the coming weeks. So stay tuned for those. So for this episode, I'll just jump right into it again. So this is all the other new stuff that I got over the holidays. And I should mention, as I'm filming this, it is January 19th. My birthday was the 17th. So there were a couple additional things that I got as gifts for my birthday, which I'm going to tack on to the end of this video. So the first new figures I have to show you are a couple of Masters of the Universe classics. So I've got here Rotar and Twistoid. Now, when it comes to Masters of the Universe Classics, that's a line that was produced by Mattel beginning in like 2009, and it ran pretty much right up until 2018, even though the license had passed from Mattel over to Super 7 a couple of years ago. But still, the line has been going pretty consistently for about a decade. And the way it worked for a really long time is they would release a new classics figure. Most of them were based on the vintage toys from the 80s. They would release one every month. And it was just part of my routine to go on to Mattel's website on the 15th of every month and order the new figures. Although it was a very expensive endeavor, as each figure was about $30 US, which translated to a little over 40 probably here in Canada, and then the shipping was crazy. They charged you about the same for shipping as the price of the figure. So I'd be paying like 30 US plus about another 25 shipping, so 55. I was paying almost like $70 for just one of these figures. So I love these figures. They're really well made. They're a good size. There's a good bulk to them. They're of high quality. They've got lots of accessories. I love the Masters of the Universe Classics line, and you've probably noticed my shelves full of them in the background of some of my videos. I would say I'm a near completist. I would try and buy most every one that came out. However, these two guys here, when they were originally released, they were part of a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive 2-pack. So it was only available at the convention. And because it was a 2-pack, both those factors made it more expensive. I don't remember exactly what it was selling for, but if you consider a single guy was $30, a 2-pack was probably $60. The fact that it was a convention exclusive, it might have been more like $75. And since I didn't go to the convention, I would have had to buy it on like the secondary market from somebody on eBay, and I probably would have had to pay $100 US for it. And I really don't know anything about these two characters. Twistoid and Rotar, these guys were originally released in 1987, and I wasn't really buying Masters of the Universe figures at that point anymore, and they were kind of gimmicky. Basically, the old toys, what you saw there was the top half of this guy here, and then instead of legs, they just had a spinning top for a bottom half. And the gimmick was that you kind of pulled a plastic strip and they would spin around and battle one another with these crazy weapons that they have here. And yeah, I didn't have those. I sort of remember when they came out, but I really wasn't paying attention to Masters of the Universe that much at the time. So when these guys came out in the Classics version in 2015, I thought they were cool. I thought it was a pretty cool upgrade because they've given these guys legs, which is huge. I still just didn't have the attachment to these characters to pay that big money to get them. Anyway, I think a lot of people must have felt that way because these guys have kind of dropped in price. They've gone on sale. And these guys were available on Big Bad Toy Store, and they were marked down to maybe 50% off or something. Anyway, so when I made an order at Big Bad Toy Store over the holidays, most specifically to get my brother a Christmas present, I thought, you know what? In order to make it worth my while with the shipping, I'm going to see what else is on this website that I can throw in here. And these were one of the things that I've kind of procrastinated on for a long time. And I thought, I'm finally going to pull the trigger and get Twistoid and Rotar. And I'm glad I did, because these guys are really cool. And now that the Masters of the Universe line is coming to an end, and it's kind of sad that I don't get to add new figures to my collection very often these days, it was nice to be able to grab a couple of new characters. And even though they're kind of weird characters, they maintain the same quality as all the Masters of the Universe Classics figures. Lots of good articulation. Like I said, really well made, really bright and colorful. Just really fun toys to collect. And both of these guys, not only do they have legs, which I think that's really all I would need them to have, but Mattel did also give us the optional tops version for their lower half. So you could break these guys apart, which I haven't done as of yet, so hopefully I don't break anything when I do this. So Twistoid here didn't seem to want to give, but Rotar came apart quite easily. So here you go. Let's see. Oops. There's his legs. And I've just replaced it with the spinning top. So now he looks like he did in the 80s. And if you wanted to display them this way, and if you were a collector that had these when you were a kid, who knows, maybe you actually prefer them this way, because this is how you remember them. Obviously, they don't stand up on the shelf very well like that. So Mattel has given us some display bases there. So we can set these guys in there, and now they can kind of just rest like that. So we have the same parts there for Twistoid, but like I said, I'm not really comfortable trying to pull him apart right now. So there you go. They also had a couple other accessories which mimic the accessories they had in the 80s. So this here comes with Rotar. It's 3 spinning blades. And these 2 swinging axe blades come with Twistoid. I don't really know what I'm supposed to do with them with these figures. I don't really know the mechanics of how that all is supposed to work. But regardless, I just think these guys are really cool. Now, another thing that's kind of neat about these guys is I actually really like their face sculpts. They're very true to the vintage toys. But I find if you flip them around, they both have really cool kind of alternate faces on the backs of their helmets. And I imagine those you could pop their heads off and swap them out. So let's try that right quick. Well, this time around, it was Rotar giving me problems. But Twistoid, I didn't actually have to pop his head off. I just spun it around. So yeah, if you like him this way, he looks kind of more robotic rather than have that kind of green monster face. And I actually think that's a pretty cool look for him as well. And I'm sure you could do the same with Rotar here, because I really do like the look of that kind of full helmet. But yeah, I don't feel like messing around with them and potentially breaking them right now. So this here is the latest Tyrannosaurus Rex figure from the Jurassic Park or Jurassic World toy line. And this guy is huge. Now, if you already watched my best of 2019 video, you would have already seen this guy. I did just get him. I got him for myself for Christmas, so I opened him up just a couple of weeks ago. And I'm just really impressed with this thing. And he's gigantic. I really can't fit him on screen. But just to give you some idea of how big he is, I'll bring some other figures up here for scale. So here you see him with Twistoid from the Masters of the Universe Classics, along with Deathlock from Marvel Legends. Both those guys are about 6 inches. And then I've got my AT-ST Pilot. So this guy here is 3 3/4 inches from the Star Wars. And past T-Rex toys, past Jurassic Park toys, really, I think have all been to scale with the 3 3/4 inch. But this T-Rex here, he is ginormous, that I think he's more to scale with a 6-inch figure. So yeah, if you were using him with your little Star Wars or little G.I. Joe or little Jurassic Park figures, this would have to be some sort of freak of nature, gigantic, some sort of engineered jumbo T-Rex. But it actually works out pretty good, I think, for the 6-inch figures. And again, just to give you an idea of the size of this figure, here it is next to the original Jurassic Park T-Rex released back in the 90s. And this is still a great figure, lots of great detail, and he's a good size. Like he's really to scale with those smaller G.I. Joe, Star Wars type figures, but he is totally dwarfed by this this new giant T-Rex. So yeah, if you were to play with these guys with your 6-inch figures, I guess you've got a mama and baby T-Rex here now. So this figure here, it's got lots of nice sculpting. The paintwork is pretty decent there too. You see lots of different kind of texture and different colors in the skin. Now this figure was originally released, I think in 2018 without any of these battle damage. And then in 2019 it was re-released with the battle damage. Now I will say the battle damage paint job is kind of leaves a lot to be desired. It does not look very realistic as far as damage goes. This is a little better because it looks like there maybe even is some slashes in the sculpt. But that paint on the face there doesn't look very good at all, really. Now, one cool feature this guy has is he, of course, has an articulated jaw, so his mouth can open. And you can see right down there into his mouth. And as you saw on my quick little shots of the packaging, the intent is that he can eat your smaller figures. And then he's got a little latch here on his belly, a little trap door, so you can retrieve all your figures that he swallows. So that's pretty cool. Alright, so let's give this a try. So he's also got some sound action, so if you open up his jaw wide enough, he gives you a big roar. And yeah, then you can take a figure and plop him right in there. Now, I expected the action figure to go into his belly and kind of sit there like a little reservoir until I got around to opening him up. But there's not really any resistance on this trap door, so as soon as I put the Star Wars figure in there, this guy just flew right out of him like it was Taco Bell or something. So yeah, let's just maybe see that from the other end. You can see that it doesn't seem to want to... Oh, there we go. Maybe it needs to be locked in place. So if I feed this guy to the T-Rex... Okay, there you go. So yeah, he does kind of sit in place there until you choose to pop this open. And yeah, and there's our dude. So, cool. Okay, now let's take a look at my new Funko Pops. So you see here, I have got 2 of them from the movie Gladiator. So I've got Emperor Commodus and Maximus, the Gladiator. Those are the only 2 figures in that particular set. Although there is a store exclusive Maximus with his helmet on, which would be pretty cool to get, but these 2 will do for now. I've got UFC fighter John Jones. I've already got a couple UFC Pops, but they just added John Jones and Daniel Cormier to the line. I've got another Batman figure. This one is based on the movie Batman and Robin starring George Clooney. Here I have Diego, aka the Kraken, from the Umbrella Academy show on Netflix. In my last video, I showed you that I got 2 other members of the Umbrella Academy, so it's nice that my team is growing there. And lastly, I have a couple of figures from the HBO show Veep, starring Julia Louis-Dreyfus as the vice president. And I've heard good things about that show for years. My wife Vanessa binged it all last year on a streaming service, and she became a really big fan of it. She particularly liked Gary Walsh here, so I bought her this figure as a stocking stuffer. And so when I gave it to her on Christmas, she really appreciated it, but she said, "You really need to watch Veep. You'll really like it." So since Christmas, we've binge watched, I think, 4 of the 7 seasons, and I've become a really big fan of Veep in the meantime. So I actually went out myself and bought this pop figure of Jonah Ryan, another character from the show. So here's a closer look at Commodus, as portrayed by Joaquin Phoenix. So you see here he's got a pretty elaborate suit of armor on with like a chariot kind of carved on there. He's got his rings on there, and he's giving the kind of famous thumbs down, which the Emperor would do from up on his balcony if he wanted the gladiator to assassinate his foe. So yeah, I don't know that this figure particularly looks like Joaquin Phoenix per se, but with the outfit and kind of the crown there, the thumbs down, I don't think there's any question who this is. This is Commodus from Gladiator, and I think he looks great. And next up, here's a closer look at Maximus from Gladiator. And now, with his sword down and his arm out like that, he is in his iconic pose where he shouts, "Are you not entertained?" to the viewing masses. And again, I don't know that I wouldn't guess this was Russell Crowe if I just saw that head necessarily, but with the pose and the outfit, the sword, there's no questioning that this is Gladiator. And I think it's a great figure. And I'm glad we finally got this guy, because I've had my Braveheart pop for a couple of years, and it seemed like Gladiator was an obvious pick to come out soon afterwards, but it took a while. And here he is, and he's awesome. Now here is John Jones, the UFC fighter. I'm a big UFC fan, and I have quite a few of the other UFC pops. I've got Anderson Silva, Conor McGregor. And so it's nice to get John Jones, because he is an amazing fighter, despite what you might think of him personally. And this is a well-made figure. I think the problem with it is with any of these pops where they don't have a whole lot of sculpted detail. It really relies on the outfit and the accessories. And other than the fact that he's holding his belt, it's not really obvious that this is John Jones. Like, you could kind of tell me this is Tyrone Woodley, and I could have believed you just as easily. There's really nothing super distinguishing of John Jones. Even the fact that he's got all this hair, John Jones, he often has a shaved head with no hair, so that doesn't help to identify him. So I debated on whether I should even pick up this figure, but I am a fan of John Jones, and it's one of those things where I didn't want to pass on this figure and then decide later that I want it, but then it's really hard to find. So yeah, I picked it up. And yeah, not bad. Now here is Batman from Batman and Robin, as portrayed by George Clooney. And now, I'm a Batman fan, but when it comes to these Funko Pops, Batman is my favorite one to collect, because they've released him in so many variations and colors. You can see if I move him here, I've often got some of my Batmans there in the background. I've probably got about 30 different variations of Batman or more. And yeah, this is a really nice one. The movie was pretty goofy, but this outfit is kind of fun, and it's kind of different. And yeah, actually I didn't necessarily know how different it was until I had this figure in hand, and I'm kind of appreciating all the details, because I assume all these details, like these little vents and everything by the ears, those are all right from the movie. Lots of detail in the body there. And yeah, it's a fun little figure, and pretty cool. Now here's a closer look at Diego from the Umbrella Academy. So in my last video, I showed you that I got Luther and Klaus from the Umbrella Academy. So now I've got 3 of the 7 members. And yeah, hopefully I'll track them all down eventually. These were probably my 3 favorite characters in the show. So I'm glad they're the first ones I was able to find. And the Diego is good. But I was a little surprised when I saw him. He looks a little more, I don't know, Mexican than I expected. Like, his skin tone is so much darker than that of his brothers. And also the mask. He didn't wear the mask a whole lot in the show. I almost would have preferred they did it without him. So I think with the outfit, and he's got a little bladed weapon there, I think it's obvious that this is Diego, but I just don't know if they captured the actor's likeness well enough for me to say that this is a great pop figure. Now here's Gary from Veep, and as I said, this figure actually belongs to Vanessa because I bought it for her. And not only is she a big fan of Veep, but when I first met her, her favorite show was Arrested Development. And so very early on in our relationship, I bought her a Funko Pop of Buster Bluth. And Buster, so you see here, he's got a little hook hand after it was, he lost a hand to a loose seal. And he's got a little juice box there. So Buster Bluth was portrayed by actor Tony Hale. And Tony Hale also portrays Gary in Veep. So Vanessa by no means collects action figures or pops or anything. I got her this one as a little stocking stuffer one time, and I kind of thought it was a nice callback to get her another Tony Hale from another TV show that she really likes. And I was kind of surprised, actually, when I put the two of them side by side. I kind of expected them to be very similar, but you can really see the changes Funko has made over the years. The head size is different. I actually think this one looks more like Tony Hale than this one somehow. But yeah, so she appreciated it, and I think this is a pretty cool little figure. He's got his bag, which that's all he does. Most of the show is just totes the Veeps bag around, and he's also got some tea ready to serve. And yeah, it's a cool little figure. And also from Veep, we've got Jonah Ryan. So, like I said, I just started watching Veep just a couple of weeks ago, and I like a lot of the characters in that show. However, they only made 4 different characters in the Funko Pops, and I haven't seen the Julia Louis-Dreyfus character around, but I did go into a store and I found Jonah, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to pick this one up. But the problem with both him and Gary a little bit is that they don't have, again, any real distinguishing features. So if I put this on my desk at work just as is, nobody's going to walk by and say, hey, that's a Jonah Ryan figure. You really kind of have to be in the know, and you kind of have to be told almost who it is to appreciate it. Now, they did try. He's got his little glossy badge on around his neck, and he's got some a White House document in his hands. He's also sporting 2 cell phones or whatever in his hand, because Jonah's kind of a mover and a shaker, and he's always doing stuff. But even the head sculpt there, he does have kind of messy hair, which Jonah has. But I don't know if this hair quite captures Jonah. At a glance, I would say this figure almost looks like something out of an anime or a boy band or something. But even still, he was. I got him on sale, and I'm a big fan of the show presently. So it was kind of an impulse buy, and I don't mind that I bought him. Now, this figure is a few years old, but it's new to me. This is a Marvel Legend of Nova, and this is the original Nova, the Richard Rider Nova. Now, I've been pretty much completist when it comes to Marvel Legends for the last couple of years, but this Nova figure came out maybe a wave or 2 before I really got on board with collecting. This is a good figure, but I still don't think it's as good as it would be if they made it now. Hasbro hadn't quite hit their stride yet when they were making these figures around the time of, say, the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, but they've gotten a lot better since. So I've seen this figure around before, and I considered buying it just because I really like Nova as a character, but I didn't necessarily love this head sculpt. The helmet didn't quite look right, and I kind of thought, well, maybe I'll hold out and they'll do a better version of Nova. But I waited a while, and all I got was this version of Nova, which is the younger Sam Alexander version, who's a totally different character. And once they gave me him, I kind of thought, well, maybe that will kind of make them hold off on giving me this guy again, since they already did a different version of Nova. Anyway, so unboxing day, I went to Giant Robot Comics, which is a local comic book store around here, because every year unboxing day they have a buy 2, get 1 free. And so I usually go in there and buy a few toys or a few comic books. And this year, I got the Black Panther figure with the pink highlights that I showed you in my last video. I think I got a Funko Pop, and I got this Nova figure, which they had loose. So yeah, it was nice to finally be able to add Nova to my collection. And yeah, he's a pretty cool figure, but I would still get a better version if Hasbro were to revisit him in the future. Now, I kind of have mixed feelings about this next figure I'm going to show you. So this is the old Walrus Man figure from the original Star Wars toy line. This is the one I had as a kid and I've held on to. This was my favorite Star Wars toy as a kid, and to this day, he remains my favorite Star Wars character. Now, if you know who Walrus Man is, he's in the very first Star Wars movie. He's the guy that kind of harasses Luke and Obi-Wan in the cantina with a couple of grunts, and Obi-Wan ends up lightsabering his arm off, and he looked nothing like this. In fact, when they started making Star Wars toys again in the 90s, they remade Walrus Man, and they actually gave him a unique name, which was never uttered in the original movie. He never really had a name said out loud in the movie, so when the old toy came out, they just called him Walrus Man because he had those tusks, so Hasbro or Kenner or whatever just made up a name for him. Anyway, so in the 90s, they gave him an alien name, so his name became Ponda Baba, and this is much more what he looked like in the movie. So not nearly as cute, but I still like this character. So I was happy to actually get a screen-accurate version of this character in the 90s, but my love for this character really stems from this goofy figure of the 80s. Anyways, my wife Vanessa was on Instagram a short time before the holidays, maybe in November, and she follows Bobby Moynihan, who is a former cast member on Saturday Night Live. And he had kind of plugged one of his friends creates custom action figures, and Bobby Moynihan plugged them on his Instagram. And Vanessa pointed them out to me. She's like, check these out. And so it's this guy, I'm blanking on his name right now. His last name's Healy, and he has a company and a website called Healy Made, where he makes these little custom figures. And he makes these mashups of wrestlers and Star Wars characters. And he has quite a few of them, but I saw that he had Walrus Man, and I loved the fact that Walrus Man was based on this silly 80s toy and not the screen-accurate version. And I said, okay, I got to get that. So I ordered it, and he arrived just before the holidays, and here he is. So you see here the Healy Made figure. He's got the classic 80s Walrus Man look. He's got that really kind of bright colors, that green skin, which was not screen accurate. He's got the orange trunks with the blue knee pads and wristbands. And I love that it's a little homage to the silly 80s figure and an homage to WWE wrestlers of the 80s with this classic kind of taunting, pointing pose. I just thought it was great. And he has a ton of these guys. Like there's Greedo and Hammerhead and Boba Fett and IG-88. So he seems to lean towards the aliens and the bounty hunters, which are my favorite characters from the Star Wars universe. So yeah, I absolutely love this thing. I'm so glad that it exists, and I was so excited to get it. But there's some cons too. Once I started following Healy Made myself on Instagram, I started getting a lot of recommendations for other custom figures, and I started to realize how many artists there are out there making cool customs that I want. Unfortunately, it's a very expensive road to travel down. For example, this Healy Made figure, I expected it when it came in the mail to at least be the same size as the vintage Star Wars figures, but you can see here he's shorter. Like he's not quite to scale with these guys. I didn't think that he was articulated. The website didn't really specify, but just from the look of him, I didn't expect him to be articulated. And he is not. He's a completely static figure. And, so this little guy here, well, each of the figures that Healy Made was selling, they were $70 US a piece. And then shipping on top of that. And then I got dinged some custom charges, too, for having them come over the border. So when all's said and done, this little figure that's about 3 inches tall and doesn't move cost me about $100. And it's very hard for me to say that he's worth that. I'm happy I bought this one just so I could kind of test it out. I love the look of the other ones. I think it would be really cool to have a display of them, but I simply cannot afford to be dropping $100 a pop for these things here. So if you have the disposable income and you're a fan of Star Wars and wrestling, I definitely recommend you check out Healy Made. But for now, this will just be kind of a one-off oddity in my collection, but it will be a piece that I will forever be proud of, and I will always make sure that it is prominently displayed so I can talk about it when people come by and check out my collection. So next up, I have a couple of reaction figures from Super 7. So Super 7 is a relatively small company that makes all kinds of cool and funky little action figures. And one of the lines they do, which they call Reaction, you'll see here, is these little 5 points of articulation figures. So they're kind of intentionally simple. They're supposed to be reminiscent of the Star Wars figures of the 80s. And they do it in for a lot of different toy lines. You can get bands and old movies and old cartoons, all kinds of stuff. And I have quite a few of these things already. I've got the Aliens, I've got Karate Kid, I've got Scarface, I've got the Rocketeer, Star Trek, the Boondock Saints. They've done all kinds of cool little things. And one of the most appealing things about these figures is the kind of vintage card art. Because a lot of toys you buy nowadays, they just come in a box, they don't have that unique artwork. Whereas when you bought toys in the 80s, they always had these like really nice original paintings on the packaging. So with these reaction figures, the painting is part of the appeal. So almost every time I buy a reaction figure, I keep it sealed on the card and I just pin it up on the wall because the whole thing is a work of art. Anyway, with the Masters of the Universe line, they've done quite a few figures. I have 2 of them. I bought Merman, who is my all-time favorite Masters of the Universe character. And I also got Beastman, more or less just because I got him on sale one day. As much as I love Beastman, I kind of made a promise to myself not to buy the entire line of Masters of the Universe in the reaction figure style, just because, again, it can get to be kind of expensive. So I was just going to buy my favorite character. But my second favorite character in the Masters of the Universe line after Merman has always been Mantenna. And so, yeah, they released Mantenna in their most recent wave of reaction figures. And what's cool about this figure is the first Mantenna they released was based on the cartoon colors, which was cool, and I would have probably bought that had I seen it in stores. But Super 7 was having a kind of a Black Friday sale where they were selling reaction figures. If you bought, what was it? If you bought 5, your 6th one was free. And when I went on their website, Mantenna, they also had this special edition, this version here, which is based on the classic toy colors, which is quite a bit different from the animated look. And so this one looks a lot like the toy I had in the 80s. I'm really nostalgic for these colors and this look of this particular character. So yeah, I absolutely love this. The artwork on the card is great. The figure itself is just awesome in its simplicity. On the back of the package, you see some of the other figures in the line. There's another look at Mantenna in the animated colors. So he's got the big yellow eyes and kind of the light blue limbs, which is, quite a bit different than what we've got here. So yeah, I was pretty stoked to get Mantenna, and he's going to get pinned up on the wall. I also got Bebop. They've done a whole bunch of Ninja Turtle reaction figures. Of course, you can get the 4 turtles, there's Shredder, the Foot Soldiers, and they're all really cool, and I love the card art. But just like with Masters of the Universe, I said I'm just going to stick to my favorite character, just so I can kind of pin this to the wall as kind of just a one-off thing. And Bebop has always been my favorite character from the Ninja Turtles line. And I love how this reaction figure is kind of a callback to the original 80s figure. And yeah, he just looks awesome. On the back of the package there, you can see the other figures in the Ninja Turtles reaction line. He's got a little bio on the top there. Anyway, it's just great. I love the whole package here. I kind of do wish I could open them up and play with them, but I know I'd regret it later. So these guys are going to remain sealed in package. So as I mentioned, Super 7 had a sale on for Black Friday that if you bought 5 figures, your 6th one was free. So I went to their website with the intention of buying all 6 of their brand new Transformers reaction figures. However, when I saw the Mantenna variant and I saw the fact that Bebop was brand new, I decided to get those 2 guys. And I put 2 of the Transformers on the back burner. So I did not get Bumblebee and Jazz, but I did get these 4. And again, you see it's got that great card art. Each character has a unique painting on there, and it's it's awesome looking. Now you'll see with these guys here, I broke my rule and I opened them. Now, I did cut the package strategically enough that the bubble is still intact, and I'm hoping I can maybe slide the figure back in there so I can still pin these up for display. But I gotta be honest, I just was so in love with them when I saw them, I just had to open them up and play around with them. So there's Soundwave, Megatron, Optimus Prime, and Starscream. Now, I absolutely love these things. I just got these things a couple of days before the end of the year, and I was really torn when I was putting my best of the year list together because I just opened these up and I kind of loved all of them, and I easily could have put them all on the list. It was Optimus and Soundwave were the ones that I'm most enamored with, and I decided to put Soundwave on my best of list because he's just awesome. Like, look at these things. They're very simple, and that's part of their charm. They've only got the 5 points of articulation, so their arms go forward, their legs go forward, and their heads turn, and that's it. So you can't get them in anything too dynamic of a pose. They do all have accessories. They each have their own unique weapons there. Here's a closer look at Optimus. Just a great classic kind of animated cartoon look to them. I've got lots of great Soundwaves and Optimus Primes in my collection. I actually don't have a Megatron figure that I think has been kind of the iconic. I'm always looking for a better Megatron figure, and this is the best Megatron figure I currently own. He looks like the classic cartoon. He's everything I want out of a Megatron. I think he's just great. Love this figure. And then here's a closer look at Starscream. My only gripe with him is his mouth seems a little high up on his face. He kind of looks like he has a big chin like Jay Leno or something. But otherwise, it's a cool figure, and he comes with a mini version of Megatron to hold as a weapon, which is pretty cool. Another little problem I have with these guys is they feel very brittle and delicate, like him especially. These little guns here, and his wings are really thin. Optimus, those little like ears on the top of his head, they feel very brittle, and they can snap off very easily. So yeah, if you were giving these to a kid to play with, I wouldn't expect them to stay in good condition for very long. But I just really wanted to open them up to play with them about this much. That's all I really wanted to do. I just wanted to fiddle around with them because they were just so cool looking. I will get Jazz and Bumblebee eventually. You can see them here on the back of the package. It shows the whole wave. But they've already got plans for at least 2 additional waves. I haven't seen pictures of any of them, but I've just seen the names of the characters that they're soliciting. And one of them is Devastator, the Combiner. And he's slated to be larger, so he's probably going to be like double the size, which is really cool. I'm really excited about all the characters they've got coming out. So I think I might be all in on the Transformers reaction figures. This is McFarlane Toys Armored Superman in the package. And here we see some artwork on the back on which the figure is based off of. So these McFarlane Toys are hot off the presses. It was announced a few months back that McFarlane Toys would be taking over the DC license, and people have been pretty curious about what these toys would look like. Because even though McFarlane really revolutionized the toy industry, a couple of decades ago, the stuff they produce in recent years, I would not put it on par with things like that Hasbro and other companies are producing. Like, for example, their Walking Dead figures. They were always kind of, I found them kind of brittle. They had weird articulation. Just weren't easy to play with. McFarlane's always kind of made things that were closer to statues than they were action figures. And I don't think that's what people wanted out of their DC collectibles. And I think McFarlane has done a pretty good job with these figures here. So the first wave of McFarlane stuff just started hitting the other day. And I saw people posting online that they were finding them in stores. And then I found them a couple days later, which is actually pretty rare for me here in Canada. Usually when I see people in the States getting product, it's a good month or 2 before I start seeing it. But yeah, I found these right away. And so the line that McFarlane has went with, I forget what they're calling it, like DC Universe or whatever, multiverse. And they're not focusing on any one thing. They're doing movie-based figures, they're doing cartoon-based figures and comic book figures, and kind of mixing it all together. And so yeah, they've got a good variety of stuff. There's about 8 or so figures, I think, in their first line. And to be honest, I'm really not that interested in collecting any DC figures right now. There's no particular character that I feel like I need. But when I saw this Superman figure and the Batman figure, which I'll show you in a minute as well, I just thought these were something that were really unique and really different and unlike anything else that I have on my shelf. I've got multiple Superman figures, but nothing like this. Now this look, according to the packaging, it's based on an outfit he wore in the story Superman Unchained, which I bought and collected when it first came out years ago, but I don't remember this. So, I don't know. And it is a weird thing that Superman would even really need armor. And even if he did need armor, I don't think he would wear something as flashy as this. This doesn't really scream Superman to me. Like the body suit is okay, but the helmet is a little much. But I think it looks awesome. I really dig it. And so that's the thing. I just wanted a cool looking action figure, and this fits the bill. And as far as McFarlane Toys go, like you see the articulation there. He's got double jointed knees. He's got articulated toes there. Good movement at the leg. Like, it feels like a good sturdy toy. It doesn't feel breakable like McFarlane Toys often do. Yeah, he's got a good amount of articulation and posability. The colors are really bright. Oops. Yeah, these things here, which I guess I would call his cape, they just plug in there. They weren't attached to him in the package. I don't know if I'd call that an accessory so much. He didn't really come with accessories. He came with a trading card, and he also came with a display base with the little DC logo. But it's kind of an odd base because it's just a small circle, and he's got such a wide stance that it's unlikely you're going to get him on this little base, I wouldn't think. Well, let's check it out. Well, I don't know. I guess it could work. I guess you could stand him on there. But I would have thought maybe a bigger base would be the way to go. Anyway, it's a really sharp looking figure. I love the sculpting. You see there's lots of nice little sculpted detail there and around the shoulders and the neck. The paint is really nice, kind of a metallic-y sheen to it. Really cool figure. So a promising start for McFarlane's DC figures. And this is McFarlane Toys Armored Batman. And we've got some artwork on the back. So along with Armored Superman, I also got this Armored Batman. Now this figure is based on a storyline that I did not read, so I'm not familiar with this armor. Though Batman has worn armor in the past, there is a precedent for that. You can maybe see in the background there, one of my pop figures is an Armored Batman from back in the Dark Knight Returns storyline. He wore some big bat armor in Scott Snyder's run as well. Yeah, and this is just cool looking. Again, it's like Superman. It's got good posability there. You have the double jointed knees, articulation at the toes, so you can get him in lots of poses there. It's just a big menacing look. These spikes are kind of sharp. He almost hurts to hold with all these spikes coming off him everywhere. The wings were detached, so I had to plug those in. I'll be honest, they're kind of weird. I don't really know how they're supposed to work. Like, it gives them a nice, good, wide wingspan. And they do fold. So you can kind of tuck them in like that. But you don't seem to be able to tuck the two of them in. Maybe. I guess maybe that's how they work. Alright, so that, I guess, works. So you can kind of tuck his wings away behind them if you want to make some extra room on your shelf. But if you want to give him a big, wide open wingspan, you can do that as well. So yeah, I just really dig the look of this. I don't know much about the background of it or why he had to wear armor in this particular storyline. But yeah, the red on the black is really striking looking. It's just a really cool look for the Dark Knight. And yeah, another nice figure from McFarlane. Here's Dr. Aphra in the packaging. So here is the Dr. Aphra figure from the 6-inch Star Wars Black Series line from Hasbro. Now, Dr. Aphra is a character you are very likely not familiar with. She has never appeared in any Star Wars movies or TV series. She was a character that was an original creation for the current Marvel comic books. So she first appeared as kind of a side character in the Darth Vader comic book, and I guess she proved popular enough to spin off into her own series. And I've been a big fan of Marvel's Star Wars comics, but I really did prefer the Darth Vader comic book over the standard one. And so I really liked this character of Dr. Aphra. And I've been collecting her solo series ever since it launched a while back now. And I gotta say, I am impressed that it is still going strong. I would sometimes worry that maybe Star Wars fans would not embrace this new character, who had not been previously established in any of the movies. But yeah, people seem to like her. And I was very stoked when I saw that there was a figure coming out of her and her two droid compatriots, which are BT and 000. Now, all of these guys, they came out around the same time, and I want to say it was probably a year ago or more, but I don't know where they were released. I don't know if they were store exclusives or what, but I never saw them anywhere. And and then once I realized that it seemed like they had come and gone, because I kept kind of hoping that they would show up eventually, but then I was like, you know what, these aren't really popular characters. I think maybe they came and went, and I missed my shot at getting them. That was kind of a bummer. So the two droids they had for sale at Big Bad Toy Store, but their Dr. Aphra has been sold out for a while, and she's getting a little expensive to find on the secondary market. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I've heard there's rumors that the next live-action Star Wars show on Disney Plus might actually be focusing on Dr. Aphra, so that could really boost her popularity as well. And this figure could get even harder to find. So I managed to buy these two figures for myself, and I reviewed them on a video not too long ago. And once I had them, then I really wanted to get Dr. Aphra, so I had the whole team. And so when my brother asked me what I wanted for Christmas, I mentioned this figure, and I said, if you can find one for a decent price, I would really like that one. And so I'm not sure what he paid for it, but he found me one, and I'm glad he did. I think it's a really nice looking figure. Really nice face sculpt. Really nice sculpt throughout. For accessories, she's got her little pistol there, a little blaster, can be holstered on her leg. She's got this kind of weird circuitry tattoo is what I think that is. I don't know if she could have some biomechanical infection or something, but I think it's just like a tattoo that she has on her arm. And then also her little cap with goggles here is removable. And there you go. So, she's nothing super exciting per se. Her costume looks pretty Earth-like. There's nothing really sci-fi or, interesting or exciting about Dr. Aphra, but she's just a great character that they've done a great job developing in the comic book. She's become a favorite of mine, and I'm glad to finally have this figure of her. So thanks a lot, Brother Doug, for getting this for me for Christmas. And even though he got it for me for Christmas, he ordered it for me for Christmas, but it didn't actually arrive until he just gave it to me yesterday. So that's why it's taken me so long to review this one. But I think she's great. Now here's a 3-pack of Transformers Siege figures. Some nice artwork on the front. And a shot of the 3 figures on the back. Alright, so these are the last 3 figures I have to show you. We made it through everything, so that's great. So this Siege 3-pack is what Vanessa got me for my birthday. And it contains 3 figures. So here we've got Impactor. Then there was also Mirage and Aragon. So first we're going to take a look at Impactor. Now this was the real draw to the set for me, because this is a character who he never had a toy in the vintage line. He's a character that was really created for the comic books, and he wasn't in the American comic books. I guess he was kind of created for the UK comic books, which I never read growing up or anything like that. But when IDW took over the Transformers license several years ago and started publishing their own Transformers comic books, that's when I learned about this guy. I thought he was a brand new character created for those books. I didn't know about his UK history. But he was a really cool character and just a really cool looking character. Just this big, tough, monstrous guy with this kind of drill hand. And my favorite aspect of him was this gladiator style helmet. Like you see how it comes down over his nose, and it's got that mohawk type vibe there. Anyway, I just really loved this character. He's a member of the Wreckers, which is kind of like this kind of sub-team of badass Autobots. And yeah, I just really dig this character. And I wanted a toy of him, and they gave us one during the, I don't know, it was several years ago now. But all they did is they took an Onslaught figure, repainted it, and gave him a new head. So here's the previous version. And you see they did a pretty good job with the new head. Again, he's got that gladiator-style helmet. He's got kind of this angry snarl on him. But the base figure, unfortunately, just... it wasn't a very strong figure. Like you see his movement with his arms. It looks kind of gimpy. And the colors, they got, pretty close to right. They went with purple and orange. But now that you see him compared to what he's supposed to look like, you kind of see the shortcomings of this figure. They really are evident once he's next to this one. Because this one is really great and really looks like how he appeared in the comic books. So this figure here of Impactor, he's actually going to be available for wide release soon. I haven't come across him yet, but he'll probably start showing up in Walmarts anytime now. But the thing of it is the regular retail version is slightly different. There's some minor color changes on the body, like instead of having these red knee pads, he's got orange knee pads and whatever. But the big difference is in the face. I don't know why, but the version at retail doesn't have the gladiator helmet. He's got a full silver face without the piece that comes down over his nose, and he doesn't have this pronounced mohawk either. So I thought, well, if I see that in stores, will I even buy it? Like, it's cool, it's still a good figure, but I really want the gladiator helmet. And then I learned of this gladiator helmet version that was only available in an Amazon exclusive 3-pack. Now, the problem with these 3-packs oftentimes is that you don't want all the figures in the set. Now, one of the other figures in the set was Mirage. Now, Mirage is one of the classic Autobots. He transformed into a Formula 1 car. Now, I have a pretty good Mirage figure from the mid-2000s, and I really like this one. But he's kind of stylized, he's kind of weird and lanky, and he doesn't necessarily match the aesthetic of the new Transformer figures that are coming out as part of the Siege line. And so there is a new Mirage that came out that looks more like his classic 80s look, and I thought, well, will I get that one to replace this kind of stylized one? And I didn't know if I wanted to spend the money because I do like this figure. But that same Mirage, the Siege version of Mirage, was in this 3-pack, except it's made of translucent blue plastic to represent Mirage's ability to turn invisible and camouflage himself. So this is the figure that will be showing up in stores. Again, I haven't seen it yet, but it will be colored white and blue to match this guy. And so I thought, well, this is a nice way to get that figure, but not have to buy an exact replica of this. To have a translucent Mirage is kind of a neat little novelty here. So I'm glad that I've got this sculpt from the Siege line, but that I didn't necessarily have to replace this one. So those are both wins. And then the last character in the pack, and when Vanessa bought this for me, she didn't even realize there was 3 characters in there, because if you looked at the carded box that I showed you a moment ago, this guy wasn't in his robot mode. He was kind of broken up into pieces because he can be displayed as armor for the other guys. You can snap him apart and kind of add extra chunks onto these guys. But I prefer to display him as an individual character. So this guy is Aragon. And he is largely a repaint of this cog figure that we got earlier in the Siege line. So you can see all the shared parts there. Pretty much everything's identical. It's maybe just the head that's different. But that's fine. This is a character that first appeared in 1984. I was not aware of him because he was only available through mail order, and he was not in the cartoons or the comic books or anything. But now that I've got him and I'm aware of his history, I'm always happy to add new Transformers to my shelves. So yeah, this guy is pretty cool too. And overall, I'd say that 3-pack is a win. All 3 figures, I'm happy to add to the collection. I don't feel any of them are doubles, even though I did have a Mirage and I had an Impactor figure before. These are definite upgrades, and Aragon is brand new. So there you go. There's the Siege Amazon exclusive 3-pack from Vanessa. And those are the last toys I have to show you before we move on to the next video where I'll review the new Marvel Legends. Okay, so that is the rest of the action figures I get over the holidays. Now, mind you, I'm shooting this ending before I've shot all the middle bits. So who knows, maybe if I get through this and I realize I've got too much stuff, I might have to cut that off and maybe I'll do a part 3. Anyway, I'm planning on showing you everything. So hopefully that was everything. And then for the next video, we can move on to reviewing the new Marvel Legends waves. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. As always, thank you very much for watching. Feel free to, like, comment, subscribe, and yeah. So I will see you back in a week or maybe a little bit sooner because I still have a lot of toys to talk about. So until then, ciao.